Welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. This is our June 2023 GPU price update, and man, GPU prices continue to go absolutely nuts. Remember last month we saw the biggest 30-day price cuts by not just AMD, but NVIDIA as well, as they steeply discounted their RTX 3000 series cards and even some 4000 series cards, and they're going to extend those price cuts. We'll go through each and every GPU. We'll also go over the expected RTX 4060 launch. Should you be waiting for that card, or should you be buying something right now? And we'll cover the best price to performance GPUs at 1080p, 1440p, and 4K if you're looking to buy a GPU right now. Remember, if you get value out of the video, give it a like because it makes a huge difference to the channel. And of course, subscribe, click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. With that, let's jump into it. This video is sponsored by Best Buy's Top Deals. Looking for great deals on TVs, electronics, or PC gaming? Best Buy's Top Deals has you covered. From gaming laptops like this Acer Predator with i7 CPU and RTX 3070 Ti for $1299, to this Acer Nitro 27-inch gaming monitor for just $179, to this Razer Huntsman Mini gaming keyboard for just $79, to deals on the latest phones, TVs, and more. Shop worry-free with Best Buy's Price Match Guarantee and get your products fast with in-store pickup or fast delivery options. And Total Tech members get exclusive offers. For the best deals on the latest tech, check out Best Buy's Top Deals using the link in the video description. Let's jump into GPU prices starting on the AMD side. Remember, about 30 days ago, we did this and they had huge price cuts on just about everything out there, as did NVIDIA, the largest price cuts that we've seen since the end of the shortages in 2022, right? The largest 30-day price cut. So this month doesn't surprise me. We don't see a ton of activity, but we do see important activity on things like the RX 7600. We'll get to that in a moment. Let's quickly punch through the current GPU prices. Right now, RX 7900 XTX over at Newegg. Obviously you can get one of these for about $939 right now. The XFX Speedster Merc. Just quick note about some of the prices that you're going to see at Newegg right now. Normally I like to show all the GPUs to you guys so you know that actually exist and what kind of models are actually being discounted. Right now, starting this morning, Newegg started a promo with 10% off, like almost all their GPUs in place of the normal promo codes, which would make a GPU like this ASRock Phantom Gaming one, instead of $959 or $960, it'd be more like $860, which is totally insane. I expect this only lasts for a couple of days, so I'm not going to include that as the actual price. We're going to go ahead and include their normal price in there. If these last until next month, we'll definitely include them. But if you want to check out the links down in the video description, it is possible when you see this video that these discounts are still out there. Then we've got the RX 7900 XT back up to $779. What happened is the model that was $759 basically just went ahead and sold out. Bummer on that one. I do expect, again, the 7900 XTX and 7900 XT to continue that slow decline. Probably 7900 XT, by the time we reach Black Friday, we're going to be talking about more like $700. We'll have to wait and see. Then, of course, we've got the RX 6950 XT. In fact, the 6900, I can't even find models that are, reasonably priced, that are actually real listings any longer. So I believe the 6950 XT, and again, all the promo codes that would reduce it down to the price that I had, which is $599, are gone in favor of that 10%. If you did the 10% right now, it would be more like $560, which would be insane, absolutely insane. So again, check those links. But here's what I want to note about these GPUs. There's only 2 models left at Newegg. That's it. There's only 2 models left. I think we are reaching the end of the RX 6000 series, at least at the high end, at like the 6950 XTs. The 6800 is another one. If you look at the 6800, you're like, Jason, $489. Why is that almost as expensive as an RX 6800 XT at $499? Why would I buy the 6800? Because there's only like a model left and nobody is selling that thing. Nobody's selling that thing anymore. It just completely gone off the market. Just like with the RTX 3080 and 3090, as they went off the market, the only listings left were the stupidly expensive ones, and that's what we're seeing with the 6800. If you look here, the RX 6800 XT right now, again, you wouldn't take the 10% off. If you can get that deal, it's an insane deal. But I do expect once that deal's over, the regular promo codes will come back and you'll get them for about $499 up to $530 where they have been. But again, how many models of these things are left? There's like really 3. And then there's the Yestron Waifu super expensive one that you only really buy if you're into that kind of stuff. But here's where things get super, super interesting. Look at the RX 6700 XT, 12 gigabytes of VRAM on that thing, way faster than the RTX 3060. basically faster than a 3060 Ti, down to $309. That's insane. The price on that thing keeps going lower and lower. It signals to me that this is the GPU that AMD has decided they are going to stake their big fight with the RTX 4060 on right now. Not necessarily the 7600, although the 7600 got a big price cut as well. Again, here you go. You got a couple of different models right now with that 10% off, which is huge. You can get it for less than $300, but I do expect those $20 and $30 promo codes to come back once this sale is over. And then we've got the RX 7600. Remember, AMD made such a big stink. They initially priced that thing at $300, and then at the last minute, they cut it down to $269. And everybody said, hey, it's going to be selling for less than $269 in a couple months. It didn't even take a couple of months. Look at that. This is sold and shipped by Amazon, by the way. This is not some crazy third-party seller. This is sold and shipped by Amazon for $249 right now. You can pick this thing up. Honestly, at $249, it's not a terrible value. It's a little bit faster than the 6650 XT with 8 gigabytes of VRAM, newer architecture. That is, unless, of course, you take a look at 6650 XT price, it's down to $229. Now look, you save 20 bucks, maybe decide $20 makes a lot of sense. Pretty insane price cut so far. Rounding it out, we've got the RX 6600 down $179. No real change other than we've got a couple different models now that are available at that price, not just the Gigabyte Eagle any longer, but now ASRock's joined that. Again, I feel like that weight continues to sink. I would not be really shocked if we saw these around $150, kind of like the old RX 580s were back in 2019. You could still pick one up for like $150, $160. I kind of feel like that's where the 6600 is going right now, especially given it only has 8 gigs of VRAM. Let's quickly jump over to Intel Arc GPUs before we jump into NVIDIA pricing for June 2023. And you can see, I don't know what Intel's doing. A750, the great card at $199. I don't understand $239. No, you're going the wrong way, Intel. You are going the wrong way. And look, right now, yes, you can get it with the 10% off. That brings it to like the $210 or something like that. I will note that there's this new AIB I've never heard of before called Sparkle. Let me know down in the comments if this is an AIB that you've heard of or is in a different market. But they're beginning to produce Arc A750 right now. You can get different models. However, again, $229 or $239 is the cheapest that you can find one right now. And then, of course, for the Arc A770, given the fact that it's got almost identical performance to the A750, it just has 16 gigs, except there are some 8 gig models of this card. So I'm only tracking 16 gig models because that's really why you buy this card, right? It's for the extra VRAM. $340 right now, though, for the Acer Predator Bifrost. This is the cheapest Arc A770 I can find out there, as the Intel stock kind of limited edition model is all sold out. Let's jump over to NVIDIA GPU prices in June 2023, and you can see there's not a lot of change at the top end. We saw huge price discounts. Remember last month across the board for NVIDIA GPUs, especially RTX 3000 series GPUs, got massive price cuts as the 4060 Ti and RX 7600 launch. But let's check this out. No real change for the 4090, no real change for the 4080 or the 4070 Ti or even the 4070. Effectively, those prices are frozen. What's the one that got a price cut? The 4060 Ti? That thing hasn't even been out for 30 days yet, and it's already, just like the RX 7600, it's already getting a price cut. That's right, you can buy this card right now for $379, and you don't even need a promo code for that. And if you want to use the promo code or whatever else they've got on here, and it's not just on Newegg either, Amazon and others have a couple of different cards that are $379 right now. There's a PNY that's $379. Totally insane. I have never seen a GPU get introduced and less than 30 days later already get a price cut. I will say though that just looking through these, it doesn't look like they're really selling a lot of these cards, because I have been looking at this every day and it's rare to see any of them sold out except for those, SUS models, basically the SUS Strix model. So yeah, NVIDIA, this thing's gonna have to come down. We all know what the Achilles heel on this card is. It's the 8 gigabytes of VRAM. So of course we'll have to see what happens in July when they launch the 16 gigabyte version. I don't think they're gonna be able to launch it for $500. That's totally insane. I think it's gonna look like these prices. Rounding out the rest of the RTX 3000 series, you can see 3070 Ti. There's still a card out there for $399. However, most of them, I will say, are more like $430 right now. They've come back up in price. Same with the 3060 Ti. After the cutting prices hugely last month down to $314, they've kind of bounced up just a little bit to $332 here for the Zotac one. Again, I expect those promo codes to come back in. Maybe we'll go back to $314. Probably even go a little bit lower, given that the RTX 4060 is about to launch in a week or so. Right now, you could actually pick this one up for just about $300 with that Affirm code. And then, of course, the one that everyone had waited for the rest of their life, which is the RTX 3060 12 gigabyte card. The 3060 down to $279. You don't even need a promo code for that right now. You can get it right now. That's the actual price on it. You can also get it over at Amazon right now. Check out the links down in the video description. And honestly, with 12 gigs of VRAM, not a bad pickup. If you absolutely have to have NVIDIA, this is definitely the GPU that I would be focused on. Obviously, I like the 6700 XT a lot better. The 6700 is also really good, but this is a very, very good GPU if you absolutely have to have NVIDIA, especially if you can get that 10% off, which would be insane. And then finally, rounding out the 3060 8GB card, no real change, as well as the RTX 3050, no real change, down to $219. Obviously, that card probably needs to come down way, way lower. Let's jump into the GPU news, and what's the biggest news right now is the RTX 4060 launch has been moved up. That's right, moved up. It was going to launch originally in July of 2023, now coming at the end of June, June 29th, as NVIDIA tweeted this out just a couple days ago. That means we can expect reviews of this card probably the day before, June 28th. $299, at least that is the current recommended street price on it right now that NVIDIA is advertising. And in terms of its performance, let's just take a look. Now, these are NVIDIA first-party numbers. Always take these with a huge grain of salt, especially from NVIDIA. They love not to give you good numbers. We're going to ignore this frames with frame generation because those are BS. We're going to look at frames without frame generation, which I do appreciate that they included this time for the RTX 4060. Now, the dark gray bar here, that is the 2060. The lighter gray bar is the 3060. And then we've got the green bar, which is the 4060. And basically, NVIDIA is saying that this card is going to be about 20% faster than the RTX 3060. 20% faster than the RTX 3060 when we ignore the nonsensical frame generation garbage and we just focus on rasterization performance. The big challenge with the 4060 is what? It's only got 8 gigs of VRAM and the 3060 had 12 gigs of VRAM. So you're going to run into all those problems that every 8 gigabyte GPU is running into, even at 1080p with the most recently released titles. As they're coming out, they're using more than 8 gigs of VRAM for all the shaders and the tiles. And as a result, yes, even though they might run it, it looks like total garbage on those cards, unfortunately, unless you turn down the textures way, way down. And then what are you buying this card for? What are you spending $300 or $400 for an 8 gigabyte GPU in 2023 in order to run the latest games at medium settings? Yikes, at 1080p too, 1080p, not even 1440p. So that's the big challenge with this card. We'll see if it can overcome it. Again, $300, $299. We'll see if NVIDIA shaves a little bit more off the price, especially given that the 7600, which should have about the same level of performance right now, that's already going for $249, and you can pick up an RX 6700 XT 12 gigabyte card for about the same price at $300. Let's check in on AMD's version of Where's Waldo. Where is the RX 7800 and 7700? My goodness, we got the 7900 XTX, the 7900 XT, and the 7600. Whoa, there's a big gap in there, right? Where are those other GPUs? Good news, it looks like they are kind of proceeding along. ASRock went ahead and registered a couple of trademark names with the European Commission right now. For the 7800 XT, it's going to have 16 gigabytes of VRAM, which we kind of expected. We also expect the 7700 to either have 12 or 16 gigs of VRAM. We'll have to see which one. So it looks like in terms of VRAM, those GPUs are going to be good. But when are they coming? It still seems like it's at least going to be the end of summer, possibly into the fall before we get them, but we'll have to wait and see. Let's quickly check in on the used market because there have been some pretty dramatic price shifts over there as well. So let's start off with the Ampere. So this is the RTX 3000 series NVIDIA lineup right now. And look at that, 13% month-over-month drop for the RTX 3060. That's actually the 12 gigabyte version, even though it doesn't say it, 13%. You're seeing that huge price cut that NVIDIA made last month at the retail coming into the used market. The used market is following along. And then we've got, a lot of cards that are declining, except what's the outlier there? The RTX 3090 holding its value at $738. Why is that? Simple answer, VRAM. It's got 24 gigs of VRAM, 24 gigs of VRAM. So it's holding its value even against the RTX 4070 Ti, which is similarly priced. Quick look at the RX 6000 series of cards. You can see they're also sliding anywhere from about 3 to about 7%, depending on the GPU, because again, the retail prices get cut. It takes about 30 to 60 days for that to filter into the used market. So that's what we're seeing here. Looking at older generation AMD cards, and you can get an RX 570 8 gigabyte card. These are 8 gigabyte cards, by the way, for $55 used. $55 used. It's down 20% from last month. Now, these were good mining cards, and a lot of miners are dumping them in mass right now because they realize it cost me $350 to buy that card. I'm only gonna be able to sell it for $50. I might as well take my 55 bucks right now and not wait until it goes to $25. So right now, $55, pretty insane value. 5700 XT continues its slide. Look at that, down another 20 bucks. Huge discounts on these former mining cards. On the NVIDIA side, we don't see the continued huge discounts. A lot of that's because the GTX 1660 Super is no longer on this list. I've taken it off, only has 6 gigs of VRAM. But that was a really good mining card. The 1070 was also really good, but the 1660 Supers just had it beat in terms of volume, so they were getting really cheap. But the GTX 1070, $99 right now, down 6%. All these cards continue to slide, especially those that have 8 gigs of VRAM. Let's jump into the best graphics card 2023 in June. We'll go through all the GPUs, both used and new, that have at least 8 gigs of VRAM at every performance level, starting at $200 and working our way all the way up to 4K 80 FPS. If you're not familiar with how this works, we just take all those GPUs, both used and new, current pricing, or retail pricing, or on eBay, and we divide them by their performance versus an RX 570, which is the lowest level GPU that we're going to consider, and then we get a price to performance, either new or used. There's a link to the spreadsheet in the video description. If you want to jump in there, you can make a copy of this. You can put in your own numbers for your pricing. The pricing that we're using though is US pricing. Let's jump into the best GPU under $200. Remember, we have removed all the GPUs that have less than 8 gigabytes of VRAM. So no more 6 gigabyte 1660 Supers, no more 4 gigabyte RX 570s. We're only using 8 gigabyte GPUs from here on out. So looking at the best price to performance GPUs right now in this category, you can get RX 570 8 gigabyte GPU for $55 used. That is totally insane. If you want to build a cheap, fun gaming PC, I would pick that thing up in a heartbeat. But don't sleep on the RX 5700 XT, which continues to come down in price. Now it's at $134. I wouldn't pick up the 5700 non-XT for only $10 less. Go ahead and get the 5700 XT. Remember, most of these are used mining cards, and miners are selling them off in droves, and they're trying to get whatever they can for them at this point. And the fact that it only has 8 gigs of VRAM is probably one of the hindrances right now. That being said, for $134, I'm not sure how much more performance we can eke out. If you are looking for something NVIDIA, the GTX 1070 Ti, either or the 1070 at $99 or $111, frankly, I'd go for the $111 GTX 1070 Ti. Really good values right now. But I would say once we get above about $130, yeah, it's really the RX 6600 right now at $179. You will note that last month we had the Intel Arc A750 down here because it was $199. Doesn't make the cutoff right now at $240. That's if you want a new GPU. The GTX 1080 Ti, $185, 11 gigs of VRAM. Really interesting GPU as well. Switching over to high FPS 1080p GPUs. Now listen, if you don't need more than 8 gigs of VRAM for the latest releases, you can consider some other GPUs. However, we're going to constrain this to 10 gigs or more of VRAM. That way you make sure that you get all the latest titles. And look at that, you don't have a lot of options at 1080p under $350. This is the big hole in the GPU market right now. I think a lot of people are feeling this, especially with the new releases like The Last of Us Part 1 and others coming down the pike. Here we are, there's a GTX 1080 Ti, not a bad value, $185. The RX 6700 non-XT, which has 10 gigs of VRAM and quite a good performer, $279, holding at that price. I think that's the reason we're seeing the 7600 slide down to $249. You'll notice none of those 8 gigabyte cards are even on this list. The big winner to me right now is the RX 6700, 6750 XT, coming in right around that $310 price point. Brand new. And really look at that price to performance, really good. 2080 Ti is in there for 11, but the 3060, listen, if you have to have NVIDIA, that's not a bad GPU to consider. I'm not saying it's bad, especially now it's down to $279. I am saying, however, it's not the best in terms of price to performance. We'll have to see what the RX 7700 and 7800 bring. Jumping over to the best 1440p GPU 2023 in June. This is where the score of the GPU is 220 or greater, and it has at least 10 gigabytes of VRAM or more. No price cap on this. We're simply taking the top 10 in terms of that price to performance. If you don't see the card that you really were wondering about on the list, means it didn't make this list. Go check the main list. The link is down in the video description for exactly where it falls out. We already talked about the 1080 Ti, the 3080 10 gigabyte, pretty good value right now, $431 used. Again, 10 gigs of VRAM, you start to wonder how long it's going to be a 1440p card, especially if you want to turn on ray tracing and other features, but certainly for $431, I mean, if you think about buying that one used versus like a 4060 Ti, for about the same price, it's kind of almost a no-brainer, right? And then we've got the RX 6700 in there, as well as the 6700 XT. We've talked about both those. Really, really good values. After you get there, you've got a couple of used options, but honestly, they start getting pretty expensive in price, except for the 3060, right? Which just kind of falls down because it doesn't really keep up in terms of its overall performance with those other GPUs. Jumping over to the best 1440p GPU 2023. So this is high FPS. So you are looking for high refresh rate, and we're looking for at least 12 gigs of VRAM along with a GPU score of 300 or higher. And this is just the top 10. Again, if you don't see the GPU that you're looking for, it means it didn't make this list for 1440p, and we are sorting them by price to performance. At the top of the list, we've got a couple of used cards, the RX 6900 XT or 3080 12GB. If you can pick one of those up for about $500, really that is a pretty good play out there. But honestly, the 6800 XT for $500, also brand new card, 16 gigs of VRAM. To me, that is the real winner right now. It's not clear how much longer those GPUs are going to be available. We are expecting the 7700, 7800 at some point. So maybe you just sit on it and say, hey, if it's still here around Prime Day, if it's still here around Black Friday, maybe I'll pick one up for cheap. 6950 XT, kind of the same boat. Really just two models left at Newegg right now. Two models left at Newegg. You just wonder how much longer it's going to be out there. Then we've got a kind of a mishmash. The 4070 does finally make a list out here. $600. It's not that really high performance. Yeah, it just kind of, and it's only got 12 gigs of VRAM. It just kind of feels a little bit like a fish out of water. But if you are looking for high FPS right now, those RX 6000 series cards are really killing it. Jumping over to the best 4K GPU. So this is where this GPU score is 380 or greater, and it has at least 16 gigs of VRAM, which unfortunately like wipes out so much of the RTX 4000 series, which are good cards, but they don't have that VRAM requirement. So if you do want to consider one, I wouldn't really consider it a 4K card. I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you get less than 16 gigabytes of VRAM and you're spending like $600 on a GPU right now. We've got the RX 6800 XT, the 6950 XT, great values. If you're looking for NVIDIA, that 3090 Ti holding its value at $738. Meanwhile, all the other used RTX 3000 series cards with less VRAM are sinking in value. That one's actually holding its value, and it's holding its value versus the RTX 4070 Ti, which is roughly the same price. That's pretty bonkers. And then of course, we've got kind of the big GPUs. We've got the 7900 XT, 7900 XTX, roughly about the same value. The 4080 is a little bit fish out of water because if you want the best, you just go buy a 4090. I don't really understand what the 4080 is even doing there. It's kind of a midway point, and wouldn't you want the 7900 XTX with higher performance anyway? I guess it's there just if you can't afford the 4090 for some reason, and you still want the ray tracing performance. So yeah, about $1,100. Again, just kind of in no man's land. Let's play everyone's favorite game. Should you buy now or should you wait? Well, honestly, there is one other mitigating factor in here, which is in July, we expect Amazon to have its Prime Day, probably around the 10th to the 15th, somewhere around there. They haven't quite announced it as of the timing of the video right now. But I do expect Amazon Prime Day, we should see some discounts. We often see them way more on AMD GPUs than we do on NVIDIA GPUs. So take that into account. I don't know where Intel's going to fall in that. On their CPUs, they usually don't heavily discount their CPUs, but their GPUs might be a different story. If you're a high-end buyer right now, unless you're going to wait for Prime Day, maybe Black Friday, there's really nothing to wait for. How much more are those GPUs really going to come down? I don't think we're going to see the 4090 come down. They have no problem selling these. I don't think they're going to see the 7900 XTX come down much. At the mid-range, I really don't think people should be buying anything right now. I think you should wait. Let's see what the RX 7700 has on offer. Let's see what the 7800 has on offer. Those cards will be a little bit more expensive than their current gen predecessors. You're expecting them somewhere in about the $400 to about $600 range, hopefully cheaper than that. We'll see. In terms of their performance, it's just a complete guessing game right now because we only have the 7600 on one side and the 7900 XT on the other, and there's that big gap. I would wait for those cards, see where that performance comes in. If you're on the lower end, and I use lower end in quotes because I know $350 is not low end a lot of people, but I just think the GPUs are out there for you. I don't think the 4060 is going to change anything. It's still an 8GB GPU with all the limitations of 8GB. I would not pay more than about $250 for an 8GB GPU. Frankly, I wouldn't even pay that. I'd get a 6700 XT, find the extra money, or a 6700 non-XT with 10 gigs of VRAM, or the RTX 3060 for $279. Those are the GPUs you should be focused on right now. Nobody should be buying a 4060. If you want an NVIDIA card, get the 3060, 12 gigabyte. Yes, it's a little slower, but it's got 12 gigs of VRAM. It doesn't matter how fast those two cards are. If one of them can't process the textures at 1080p, high settings on the latest titles, then what are you buying that card for? It doesn't make any sense. And to me, the 6700 and 6700 XT, possibly 6750 XT, standout values in that range. So that's what I would be buying. On the low end, yeah, you're going to get an 8 gigabyte card no matter what you do. That's just the function of the market. And I think the 6600 non-XT is a really, really good value out there. Or look at some, older generation cards that are really good around that $100 range. And if you really need to save some money, that RX 570, 8 gigabyte for $55, that's the one to get. There's a great new way to support the channel. We're launching channel memberships and you can be part of it. You'll get cool emojis that you can use in the video comments, early access to behind the scenes content, and exclusive live stream events for members. Click the join button below the video to check out everything and help support the channel. Thank you so much for your support, and we'll catch you on the next one.